Hi, my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher, and welcome to my Flosstube channel. This is Flosstube number 6. It is Sunday, May the 24th, 2020. I hope everyone is doing well. It is a partly sunny, partly cloudy day today here, so it will be very interesting to see if you see the lights changing suddenly and going darker and then lighter. It's just welcome to the sun is doing its thing, so it'll be interesting to see how the lighting in this video works out. Just a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to start with a public service announcement, then I'm going to show the stitching that I've been working on over the past week, and then for those of you where the stitching is the most important part, that's really all you care about, then you can drop off and ignore the rest of the video. I have no haul this week. I've been very well behaved. It's not that there aren't things on order that are on their way to me, but I don't have anything to show right now. And then I want to do a little bit of a discussion about overdyed fabrics, and I've got a couple of examples of, I've got an example of overdyed fabric, and I've got an example of an overdyed silk that are very different. So stay tuned if you want to see that, as well as quite a few shout outs for the Flosstubers that I've been watching this week. There's been some, from my perspective, there's been some really interesting discussion going on in some of the Flosstube channels that I've watched this week, which, by the way, by no means have I watched everybody's Flosstube. There are a lot of us out there, so you've always got lots of choice about what you want to watch. So let me start off with the public service announcement. The supplies for shops are very intermittent, and I've seen this, again, as I've been watching other Flosstube channels with shops, where, as far as I can tell, everybody is commenting on, very appreciative of all the support this community has given them during the current situation, and how great we've been about trying to support them and keep them afloat, and, give us 47 projects to stitch on, and put things into our stash and all of those great things. And it's translated, for a lot of shops who would have had walk-in traffic, all of that walk-in traffic has turned into online orders or phone orders or mail-in orders, which, in terms of processing time is a lot different. So if I walked into my local needlework shop and went, I'm just going to hang out in the floss section and pick the floss that I'm trying to figure out for my project, the staff of the shop isn't having to spend that time. But now, if I need floss and I'm saying, can you substitute, can you do X, can you do Y? That means the shop staff are having to spend that time. So it's a lot more time intensive for them, not to mention, again, like I could have walked into the store and I could have done something, but now I either have to put an online order, send in an email, or phone them, all of which translates into their time. So there's it's a lot more labor intensive right now than it used to be for many of the shops. The suppliers are, I'm assuming, doing their best like everybody, but there's a lot of lag in the system, and the orders are a lot. And it's coming out in, like I say, I've probably seen 3 or 4 Flosstube videos this week from shop owners who are going like, we just can't keep in stock. And I do have a funny story, because I do know of one where it's like they got a huge shipment of DMC in, and I think by the end of the day that they had received it, pretty much all of that had been allocated to orders that were missing it, had been, like, I think by the end of that day, they were out again. Like, they got it in and it lasted 1 business day. The color I know for sure is 310. 310, we are using a lot of it. It's really hard to get it. It's really hard to keep it in stock because everybody needs it. I think we've grown accustomed to the land of Amazon where, you know, I think that prime shipping has killed us, because welcome to, you know, you put your order in on Amazon and, you know, if you've got the prime shipping, you know, 1 or 2 day and you were able to get your stuff, that's not, even Amazon is not keeping up with those timelines right now, and they put that on their thing. And so for the LNSs and even the online versions, like it's just, there's a backlog in the system. The suppliers are doing their best. There's things like Rainbow Gallery. So as far as I know, and I will confess, I did not go online today to try to confirm this, but as far as I know, things like Rainbow Gallery, as of today, the May the 24th, Rainbow Gallery is still completely shut down. So if your store doesn't have it, they have, I think by this point in time, I think even the suppliers that maybe had some, I'm pretty sure they're out of stock. So like if you need something from Rainbow Gallery and your store doesn't have it in stock, they have no way of getting it right now because Rainbow Gallery is physically shut down. They are producing nothing. And even when Rainbow Gallery opens up, so, you know, if you were me and I'd placed an order and they said, you know, if they came back and they said, we don't happen to have that, you know, do you want to, you know, Rainbow Gallery's closed, do you want to keep it on order for you? And I, of course, would go, yep, absolutely. So, but when Rainbow Gallery opens, all the people who've placed orders like me are going to be going, like, the backlog on orders is just going to be horrendous. Gentle Arts has recently reopened. Again, I haven't checked on their situation. I'm hearing rumblings that, you know, they're open, but they're only allowed 50% of their staff. So even, you know, I truly believe that everybody within our community, suppliers, distributors, manufacturers, the LNSs, the online versions, everybody is doing their best to try to fulfill the orders and get them out as fast as they possibly can. But there is a lag in the system. You know, there's things like, again, one of the videos I was watching, they were commenting on some of the stuff that comes from Europe, and with everything that's going on in Europe, who knows, you know, even if the company is open and they can get it out, as soon as they get it ready and they put it into the mail system, now you've got like the backlog in the mail system. It's coming from overseas. Like I know that there are certain areas where like shipments from X country to Y country are not being allowed in, but if you're from B country to X country, then they can come in. Clearly I'm not tracking all of that stuff because I don't that's not the world that I'm living in, but there's just, you know, there's that backlog. And then, you know, you place an order and as soon as they get it out, your package that's coming to you is entering into the mail system. And again, the mail systems I think have been overwhelmed with, you know, because everything that used to be handled one way is now having to be done via a mail service of some kind. You know, I know that clothing stores, you could still order online and have everything shipped to you. So think of everything, you know, everything that you used to do in person that you've been doing online. A lot of that is now entering into the shipping system and is causing a backlog. So, you know, things are starting to reopen, but even to catch up, it's not going to be instantaneous. It's not going to be overnight. So we all just need to be patient. And in my head, I liken it like if you got a pattern and you started it and your family, like a week later, looked at you and said, why haven't you finished it? I mean, it's been a week. Why haven't you finished that? And if they said that to you every day, what would your reaction be? So everybody's doing their best. I am 100% confident of that. I can't imagine anybody is not trying to do their best to try to fulfill everybody's order and get the supplies and get it out to us. But there's just there's a lag in the system. There's a lot of it. There's back orders. And this is our opportunity to practice the art of patience. So that's my public service announcement. Enough of that. Let's get on with stitching. So what have I been working on this week? Well, for those of you that are returning, you know that I am doing my version of the Lindy Stitches Stitch Sania. So I'm working on a main project Monday through Friday and doing a new small start every weekend during the month of May. So that's what I'm doing. So again, my Monday through Friday project is Nora Corbett's Fairy Winter Dream. And again, for those of you wondering, the model on this pattern is stitched on 32 count Ocean Kiss linen. And if you've been here before, you know that that is not the color of linen that I'm doing my piece on. So my version of Fairy Winter Dream is being stitched on 32 count Jobelin in Midnight Tryst by Hand Dyed Fabrics by Stephanie. So this is where I'm at. So I was really hoping this week that I was going to have a chance to completely finish this left-hand side. So the right-hand side was completely finished last week. I was actually really hoping. I'm so close. I think there's probably about 60 stitches left in here. I was really hoping to get that finished on Friday and get started on the skin, but that's not how Friday's schedule panned out for various and assorted reasons. So you can see there's these little bits here. You know, for example, I think there's like 6 stitches there. It's 3 different colors, so we're into the little bits of finicky left. So there's probably about 50 stitches there, and then all of the dress other than the beads, which again, it's not like there's no beads on this thing. There's quite a few beads here. Every other blank spot that you see here is a bead. So Monday, I fully expect that I will have the left-hand side of the dress finished, and I will be off starting on the skin. So based on my eyeballing of the chart, I would say that this represents, I'd say I'm almost halfway. Like I think if all the beads were in, I would say it's probably a little over halfway, but as you can see, there's quite a few beads there. So I would say that I'm about halfway through. I've still got the skin to do, which I'm going to do 1/1. I've got the wings, I've got the back stitching, and then I have all the beads and treasures to go on this thing. So I'm still a ways off. I laugh when I think back to the video that I did before May started, where I said, well, who knows, if I finish this, I've got a backup project ready to go. Yeah, I'm not going to finish this in May. I don't think I'm going to get this done before we hit May 31st. And that's okay. Stay tuned for the video next week where I talk about the things that I've learned through what I've done and what I think I'm going to do post-May. There's a lot of things going on in my head about what I'm thinking I'm going to do. I've also been doing some thinking about what I'm going to do in 2021. So all sorts of things going through my head. Stay tuned. So that's my Monday through Friday project, Fairy Winter Dream, on 32 count Midnight Tryst Jobelin by Hand Dyed Fabrics by Stephanie. Last weekend, my new start was Summer Notes by Shepherd's Bush. This came out at Nashville of this year. So that's what it looks like. And so last week you got to see where I got to on Saturday. So here's where I'm at now. So I'm doing this on a 28 count ice blue Lugana. You can't really see the blue. It's been a problem all along. I think even if I bring it in, you can't see it. But trust me, it's a pale blue. And so my goal for Sunday was to fill in this lake. I think I had a little bit left to do on the house, like finish off, I think, a couple of the windows and put the door in. I don't remember whether I had the path out here or not, but my big goal was to get all of the fill-in for the lake done. So I accomplished that. Stayed up probably later than I should have because I just wanted to get it done. But there are a lot of things that I have learned about this project. So I'm going to tell you my thoughts on this, and then, as I've said before many times, it's your project. Do what you want, do what makes you happy. These are just my thoughts after having started stitching this. So I've noted this before, that in this particular pattern, the called for colors on this pattern have in total 12 overdyed threads. 7 weeks dye works and 5 classic color works are what's called for here. And again, when I was kitting this up, I was looking at the chart and looking at the called for, and had made a lot of decisions even before I had started that I, wasn't going to be using the overdyed version of those threads. So for my version, the colors that I pulled, I had only pulled 4 overdyed threads and had kept everything else as a DMC. And so Shepherd's Bush does include a DMC conversion on the chart for you. So generally I use those DMCs. So I would say, clearly, so filling in this lake is an overdyed. And so I would say for sure, if you like overdyeds and you want to use an overdyed, I would say absolutely the lake is the color where I think there is value in using the overdyed. When I was stitching it, because I've been watching people use overdyeds, and even my own stitching with overdyeds, that if you go all the way across and back, it can look quite stripy, and even completely up and down and back. So I did the version where I stitched completely around the lake and then tried to go in circles, concentric circles into the center. I still got a few chunks of blocks of color in there, but overall I was okay with sort of how the overdyed was coming out when I used that method. The funny thing here is I'm not sure I'm thrilled with the color. It's a lot of stitching in there, and I'm not sure I like this lake color. I was totally fine when I was looking at it on the skein and when I started stitching with it, but now that I filled everything in, I think it's a little dark. I think it's a little gray. I would like my lake to be a little lighter and a little bluer. So believe it or not, this is one of those things where it's like, I'm totally okay that I only got to work on it Sunday, because I put in that last stitch and looked at it and went, you're going to need to think about this, and time and distance always make you a better, give you some perspective on that. So I'm happy to put this away for a bit, because I'm pretty sure the next time I pick this up, I'm going to be looking at that lake again saying, do I actually really like this color? Or am I going to rip all of that out and pick a different overdyed? Now, it might also help that if I waited long enough and the stores opened up, then I could go to the store and randomly look around and see if there was a version where I go, that's more the lake color I was thinking of. But we'll see. Time and distance, we'll see. Check back. I don't know when this is going to come back up again, when I'm going to stitch on it again. But in my head, I'm going, I got to think about that. So the other interesting thing of note, which you probably didn't look carefully enough at this pattern, so in here there is a flagpole with just another button company button between the tree and the house slash cabin slash cottage, whatever you're. So the interesting thing is, okay, so there's distance between here. I'm a Canadian, so I don't want to put an American flag on my piece, understandably. And so I did go to the Jabco website to look at the buttons that they have for Canadian flags, and they absolutely have Canadian flag buttons. However, they do not have a Canadian flag button that is small enough to fit. And so they do actually put the sizes on that website. So I could just, it would show that, this particular flag is 1/2 inch, and I graciously took out my ruler and measured between my house and my tree and went, but I don't have half an inch there. So despite the several versions of the Canadian flag and sizes that they actually do not have one that is small enough to fit between my particular tree and house. So I'm going to have to decide what to do in there. So I'll probably do everything else and then come back and look and see how I feel about the gap. So whether I put in another tree, there are some flowers in the design, so I could, you know, put some flowers up here if I wanted. Again, stay tuned. Who knows what I'm going to do with that? I could get to the end and go with everything else. I don't miss the flag pole being in there, and I don't think it's, you know, I could leave it blank. I'm at this point, I don't know what I'm going to do, but we'll see. I know for sure that based on the Jabco buttons, they don't have one that will fit. I don't know. Doesn't mean that I can't find another one, but you know, at this point, I'm not concerned enough to start doing the searching. You know, I think I'll really make a final decision on that just before this is finally complete, which we're a ways off. Like, let's not kid ourselves. I've got the bulk of, you know, the heavy intensive stitching parts, but you've got all those flowers up the sides and the words, and you know, there's still a ways to go on this thing. But that was my accomplishment for Sunday of last week. So what am I doing this week? So yesterday, I had very little stitching time. It was a very, very full day for me on a variety of fronts. So had very little stitching. So this next piece is going to be, it's a little underwhelming as to what I got accomplished. But I do have some stitching time today. Again, during my day, I've got some stuff that I've got to do, and so my stitching time I usually keep till the evenings after supper. So I'm working on the Hinzeit Mini Block Autumn. Oh, see, there goes that funny. Oh, here comes clouds and things. So that's what I'm working on. I am doing on. I honestly don't remember what I'm doing this on. It's a Lugana of some kind. It could be ivory, it could be cream. Again, surprisingly, for those of you who don't, okay, and even when I hold it up, you can't really tell that. But for me, and for people who know me, this is a very yellow-based color for me. So this is not really a color that I tend to stitch on. I have it, and I actually got it specifically for this piece because I went, it's appropriate. This is a fall piece. It will be okay. It's a fall piece. It's a small piece. It will be fine. You'll be able to handle it. So this is what I've accomplished. I started in the top center and just started working on filling in. Sort of working around, you know, the lines around the blocks. My plan for today is I for sure want to come in and stitch the N down here. Because if all I did was do the lines around the blocks, you know that as soon as I came back, I'd have no idea where I started and what was going on. And yes, right side up, upside down, technically the stitches would look the same, and I get that. But just for me, I'm planning on putting the N in tonight, because then I can come back and do whatever I want, and I'll know where I am. So that's what I'm working on. If you recall last week, I was telling you about the debate that I had. So I can say now that I've started this, I'll bring it up. So that's, I don't know if you can really see the color variation there. You know, because one of my debates was so this is the called for, so I am using the called for Caron Wildflowers in Fiesta, which is number 010. So here's my open and unraveled skein. You know, my preferred color is blue, so I was feeling like, okay, even though I've got oranges and rusts and browns, which are not really my color palette, there's blue and green in there, and it'll be okay, and I'll be fine. And I'm actually really happy with how it's coming out. I did also get the Fiesta in water lilies. So similar, but the oranges were just that much brighter. Again, it's hard to tell on here, but they were just that much brighter and that much more yellow. And I went for this piece, I went, okay, I'm actually going to choose to keep the muted version of these. And I am happy with how it's coming out. So all in all, good choice on me. The water lilies Fiesta will go into my stash. Who knows if I'll ever use this color or what I'll end up doing with it. Again, this is not really my color palette, but hey, if you told me, you know, years ago for sure I would be using this, I would have said I can't imagine how that's going to happen. But I am. So I will keep it in my stash and we'll see what happens. So that's what I worked on yesterday. That's what I'm going to be working on tonight. So what am I going to do next weekend? So for the 5th and final weekend in May, what am I going to be starting for Mania / Stitch Sania? So this has got a bit of a backstory. A number of years ago, my mother was largely getting rid of her cross-stitching supplies. She was really spending 100% of her crafting time on knitting and quilting. And even at that point, it had been quite a few years before she had even remotely done anything cross-stitch related. And so she destashed all of that to me, which I had gone through, and some of it was not me, some of it I absolutely kept. All sorts of things went on there. And I will tell you, there is a Flosstube coming where we will be talking about the things that a lot of people don't want to talk about, but really do need to be discussed. So that's coming. Can't tell you when that's coming up, but it's certainly in my list of ideas of things that I'm starting to feel strongly about that people need to think about and do some planning for. So one of the things that she gave me was this bowl. And what had happened, as I could tell, and we had a little bit of a discussion about it, is she had taken, I would call it an introductory to hardanger class at one of the local needlework shops that were still in business at that point in time. And she had done this piece. So this was her introductory hardanger piece, and she's like, see, all you have to do is just finish it off, put it in the lid. I'm trying to center it for whatever reason, and you know, it's complete. That was the project I was working on. All you have to do is finish that off. Now, I'm pretty sure that my mother does not watch my Flosstube channel, so I'm gonna say this. Mom, if you're watching, sorry, there's nothing wrong with your hardanger. And it's fine, but it's also done on an ivory Ada. Actually, it's probably not Ada. I'm looking at it. It's probably an actual 22 count. And this is, it's fine, and I think it's lovely that she did it, and I will still probably keep the piece and figure out something to do with it. But it wouldn't be something where when I looked at this that I went, man, that's the best topper for that. So still keeping it, we'll still treasure it, we'll figure out something to do with it. I'm just not choosing to put it in this bowl. Pot, whatever you want to call it. Kettle. So, you know, in the back of my head, in the years that I've had this, I've been sort of saying, like, looking for something where I thought it would go with this. And in 2018, a chart came out from My Big Toe where I looked at it and I went, okay. Now, I looked at it, got the chart, and went, one of these days when we get there, I should actually measure and make sure it's going to fit in the top. But I got it anyway. And so this is Choose Joy by My Big Toe. One, I like the sentiment. You can always choose to be joyful, and sometimes your reaction is a choice. Sometimes it's not. I acknowledge that we all have those moments, but sometimes it really is a choice. And so that's what I did. And so late last year, I'm calling it late last year, I'm pretty sure it was late 2019, I was looking at my stuff and I went, okay, pitter patter, time to get at her, get this thing done, finished, show mom what you've done, etc., etc. So I went to the store, because the other thing is that I wanted to take the bowl and go, I want blues that coordinate with this. And I did want an overdyed. It calls for 3 colors of overdyed floss. The floss that's called for in that pattern are all Gentle Arts. But I wanted to be able to take it to, I'm trying to figure out how to hold this so you don't get, you're just going to have to see. There's a reflection out the window. You know, I wanted blues that would coordinate with this bowl specifically. And, you know, anyway, so off to the store I went, and having a moment saying, where did my floss go? So this is the one that I have chosen. So this is Caron Water Lilies Polar Ice, number 157. And so that's the one that and so that's the color that gets used for like all of those flowers that go around it. The words Choose Joy and the block are a darker blue, and then you need a green for the vines between the flowers. So for the darker blue, I chose Caron Water Lilies Ink number 253. So I think they're okay. Clearly when I start to stitch it up, if I think this ends up being too dark or too towards, like again, this looks really well with the top that I'm wearing, where this would look like a clash. So we'll see how those go, but I kind of went, this will, in my head, I'm going, will end up looking navy-ish against this. We'll see. If I don't like it, I'll come back and I'll try to find, you know, a tone darker than the darkest color in here, but that may be hard to find, which is probably how I ended up with this. And then for the green, I am using Dinky Dye's Irish Meadows, which is number 263. So those are the colors that I'm planning on starting this with. And then I had originally said, so this chart is 63 by 63. So it also fit nicely into my Stitch Sania account for a small. It had to be less than 100 by 100, 63 by 63 counts. And if you watched my Flosstube a couple of weeks ago, and I think I actually did have some haul, one of the things that I had gotten was 20 count white Lugana. And that was for this piece. So the opening in the top here is 3.5 inches wide. So if I do it over 20 count over 1, it will end up being just slightly bigger than 3 1/8 of an inch wide and high. So it will give me a little bit of white space between the design and the rim itself. So I got my 20 count white Lugana. My LNS was graciously had the opportunity to supply that to me in the current times, and I was able to go pick that up. Curbside delivery only. And so here's, yeah, it's these 3 colors against white. No big surprise there. So I think it'll be okay. Check back next week, see how it comes. But in the meantime, I've been watching Flosstube. And in particular, Stephanie from Just Keep Stitching and Kia from Kia Bee have been going on and 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 on about working on 40 count and how much they love it. I'm generally a 32 count girl. I'm happy to go down to 28. Usually don't go that much smaller. I was okay with 20 because it's serving a specific purpose. I'm not fond of 25 count. I don't like it for a variety of reasons. That's my taste. I've done 36. I've done several projects on 36, so I can do it. It's just, it's not, I don't love doing it on 36. Also, when you get to a 36, it means that you have to do it on a linen. Again, I can do it. I've done it. It's just, I prefer working on an even weave. But they keep going on and on about 40 count. And I do know that there is a 40 count even weave fabric available. It is called Verdal, V-E-R-D-A-L. And so while they were going on and on, I was watching the Flosstubes, and I feel like every time I watch their Flosstubes, they go, oh my goodness, 40 count, 40 count. I never thought I'd be doing 40 count. I love 40 count. And I'm like, well, maybe you should try it. So, okay. Now, I had this before because I'd heard about it and went, you just never know. Clearly, since the time I had it, I'd never, had never done anything with it. So I do have a piece of 40 count Verdal right here. I have not cut into it. I have not cut the piece down to size. Ooh, there's a lot of reflection on that. Don't know what to do about that. Anyway, it's white. So I do have a piece of it here. It's out. It's with the project. I don't know what I'm going to do about it. But I will tell you what my approach is going to be. So I am going to, before I even cut into it or do anything, I'm just going to take, this edge, quite close to the edge to be perfectly honest, within, a bit here. And I'm just going to stitch, a block of 20 stitches and see how I like it. It'll be over 2, so I'll be having to, I can't imagine that I'm going to use 2 threads. I think I'm going to use 1, but I'm going to start with 1 and see how I like the coverage, see how I like how it's looking. If I don't like it, then I'm going to do 2. We'll probably not like that, and then go, okay, I'm better off with 1. But I'm going to stitch all of that down here along the edge of this fabric before I even start to decide, do I want to do it on 40 count or do I want to do it on 20 count? At the end of the day, they're both white. I will say that stitching it on the Verdal, given the higher count, this looks like a much finer fabric. And so it will look, even it ends up being the same size from my aesthetic, it will end up looking more delicate on the 40 than it would on the 20 count, just because, you will still see there's open parts in the design where you see the fabric, and it's going to be in a size where you still have some margin between the end of the design and the rim of the lid that it's going to go into. But I don't know if I want to stitch on 40 count. I don't know if I'm going to like it. We'll see. So stay tuned. Welcome to Stitch Sania. It's always a good time to try something new. And so that's going to be my new thing, and I don't know where I'm going to go. But I've got the options there. That's my big project for next weekend. See how I like stitching on 40, if I do it on 40, if I revert back to 20. Again, the biggest reason why I'm looking at a 40 or a 20 count, because again, 40 count over 2 is the same as working over 20 count fabric, is so that it fits in the lid that goes in this pot, that at some point, hopefully I'll be able to finish the stitching, and then the really hard part, finally finishing it and actually getting it into the lid and accomplished, and then showing my mother what I've done with the pot that was part of the stash that I inherited from her. All right, thus endeth the stitching part. So if that's the most important part to you, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for watching. I hope everybody's staying safe, and look forward to having you stop by again. For those of you that are staying on, here comes some fabric and floss tube talk. on other things. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is over-dyed fabrics, because again, I've been watching some Flosstube videos. There are two videos in particular that I watched this week. I don't think they were recorded this week. I think they were recorded previously, but I watched them this week. And I think they are fantastic. So they're absolutely going to be linked in the box below so that you can directly go to those links. Because as I've said before in a previous video, you have to understand with over-dyed fabrics that the dye looks very different depending on the fabric that's being dyed, Aida versus linen versus Jobelan versus Lugana, as well as the thread count of that fabric. So on an Aida, a 14 versus a 16 versus an 18, in either of the even weaves between a 28 and a 32, and on linens between a 28, 32, 36, and I will say once you get past that, I'm completely out of my, I don't even look at those fabrics, so I don't know, but I'm assuming it can take the dye differently, and they all look different. And with a hand-dyed fabric, every piece that is produced is hand-dyed. This is not a machine process, this is a hand-dyed thing, which means every piece will look different. Every piece, even if they did exactly the same thing in exactly the same order, it can still turn out differently. Think about your baking. Now, for some of you, maybe you go like, I can make the same thing and it's exactly the same every single time. Kudos to you. For me, I can bake and they all come out fine and they're all very similar, but sometimes you make things and you go like, it's not quite the same as it was last time and I don't know what I did differently. But for sure in the land of hand-dyed fabrics, they can do everything exactly the same and every piece will look different. That's just how it is. So I have an example. So as you all know, I am doing my Fairy Winter Dream on 28 count Jobelan in Midnight Tryst. So I'm just going to hold this up again, but I'm going to take this away because I have another piece. Actually, I should hold it up while I'm doing this. So I have another piece of Midnight Tryst. It's already been cut for a different project. Actually, let's do this. It's gonna get a little complicated here. But so here's the piece that was cut for Fairy Winter Dream. So that's what that one looks like. Here is the piece that is cut for a different project, which I clearly have not started. So again, I can say, like I say, this is gonna get easy. I'm gonna fold this in half. They're similar. You know, they clearly came off of the same piece, but the way the modeling works, like in terms of color tone, these two pieces are very, very similar. But the modeling on each of these pieces is different, and they have a different degree to modeling and where that modeling is placed. So when I was cutting, you're looking at the back side of that one, isn't that lovely? You know, when I was cutting my piece of fabric into two pieces, you know, to suit these two things, I was absolutely looking at the fabric and saying, okay, for placement, where would this end up on these two pieces? Which piece is better for the two designs that I'm looking at, and making that decision. Fairy Winter Dream is going away. Now, I have a friend who, you know, does linen. Personal choice. It's great. She loves linen. That's great for her. Me, not so much the linen. But she has a piece of 36 count Midnight Tryst linen. And she's graciously allowed me to borrow it to show you, to say, so here is a piece of Midnight Tryst. I'm going to put it on the board. Here's a piece of Midnight Tryst linen in 36 count. So if you've been watching closely, I wish I had some clips. This is much darker And while it does, so the modeling is also darker, but it's not, because it's a darker tone on tone for the modeling, this doesn't look quite as modeled as my piece. So wait for this. I'm going to put the linen, fold up my Jobelin, and fold them up together. So it's interesting. They actually look very similar on camera. In real life, they're quite a bit different. So this is like, so again, from a color tonality perspective, they're very similar. But this is lighter than this. And if you were here in person, I wish that's a little bit better. Not much, but a little bit. This is noticeably lighter in person than this piece of linen. This is quite dark. Don't get me wrong. It's a dark that I love. I personally would love a piece that is this dark. I just want it on this type of fabric. But the problem is that Luganas and Jobelins don't take the dye as dark as a linen. So, you know, that's one of the struggles. I can think of certainly slate, which is a very popular hand-dyed color from Fabrics by Stephanie, and it looks great in the linen. It is a very different color in the Lugana. It actually goes, my recollection, because I have seen a piece of it, it goes fairly purple. Certainly does not look like the dark chalkboardy color that you see in the linen. It looks quite different. So note to any of you that are thinking about getting an even weave in that particular color, it looks quite different. If you're okay with that, fantastic, go ahead and get it. But if you order it and it comes looking very different than somebody else's pieces of slate that you've seen on a Flosstube or even in person, and theirs is in the linen, you should not be surprised, because it takes it quite differently. So, and again, like, you can see that there's modeling here, and you can see that there's modeling here, but the modeling in this piece is quite a bit lighter. So it gives a very different effect. Again, I'm a little disappointed that it doesn't look as different on the camera as it does in real life. That gives you a little bit, again, but this is a much lighter piece than this one. So that's an example of the fabric. So the two videos that I'm going to send to you on fabrics are both by Buckeye Stitcher. So she did two videos where she was doing a stash dive where she was going through her fabrics. There are two videos because she did one on the color fabrics that she has, and she has one where she's talking about the neutrals that she has. Now, her fabrics are all linens, which a lot of people, when they're doing the overdyes, they're doing the linens. So she's a much better resource than me. She's also using those colors that are very popular for a huge majority of people in the stitching community. They're too brown for me, so I don't have any, you know, I would say looking at her stash, I have very little of the colors that she has. So she's a much better resource for you on those than I would be, even if I did a stash dive. You know, she's done things where she's, and I'm gonna get the color wrong, but I know in the video because I watched them, she's like, here's a piece of Picture This Plus 32 Ren. Here's a piece, oh look, here I have a piece of Ren in 36 and they're different colors. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, look. Oh, wait a minute. I have another piece of 32. So I have two pieces of 32 Ren and a piece of 36 Ren, and I'm going to hold all three of them up, and they all look different. And so I think it's a fantastic video to watch because it shows you, you know, it'll give you an idea of what some of those would look like, some of those popular colors in real life. Again, you've got the difference that the way that it shows up on camera also can affect how it looks. Lighting, you know, like I say, today's a bit of a weird day, and as you can see, I've struggled to, the camera never really shows the colors as good the way they are in real life, so always keep that. But I think she did a really great job of showing, you know, what those colors look like, what the modeling looks like, how different, you know, because she's got several examples of what it looks like between two different thread counts. You know, I think a 28 versus the 32, 32s versus 36s. You know, and I think there's one piece where she's got two of the same color and she's like, I'm not sure if one of these might be mislabeled. And I don't know if it's mislabeled or not, but I go, it's a really great example of saying it can be the exact same color and you can get those two pieces and look at them and go like, how are these the same name? But that is the nature of hand-dyed fabrics. And so you, I have a little, some control issues, and so I really struggle ordering blindly. And so I know that the shop owner, I very vividly remember this. I did ask her recently about this, and she had no recollection of this story at all. So I think it's funny because it was 2015, Nashville 2015. It was the first year that Hand Dyed Fabrics by Stephanie was coming to Nashville, and I was really excited about it, which is why I was talking to my LNS shop owner that was going to Nashville, because I'm like, Fabrics by Stephanie is coming. Are you going to stop by? And don't get me wrong, welcome to Nashville, and the fabrics and all the stuff that goes on, like, it's hit and miss what you can get, what it, like, the fabrics are the first thing to go. And I do remember, because Stephanie from Hand Dyed Fabrics by Stephanie had very clearly said she went to market. I'm pretty sure that first market she was almost completely sold out by end of day Friday. And I think they only open in the evenings and Friday. Like, I don't even think they run the whole day. And she was like completely sold out. Those poor people that came like on Saturday, I think there was a little bit left. And so my shop owner did get in to see Stephanie, and she knew what I was looking for, because I have my color palette, and I'm a really complicated customer, because I'm like, I don't like yellows and browns, and there are colors where I go like, ooh, it's too yellow for me. And I want an even weave, which is not the popular, because most people are looking for linen. So I'm particular about my color. I am particular about that I want an even weave. You know, I was less particular about, you know, and I said to her, I was like, 28, 32, don't care. I care more about what the color looks like. And I sent her down on a mission, and, you know, what she could bring back, that would be great. If she couldn't find anything, and I left it up to her judgment, because she's known me for a really long time, and I trust her judgment to say, this will work for you, this won't work for you. She did a fantastic job. So I remember, because this is one of the pieces that came back in 2015, was Midnight Tryst Hand Dyed Fabric by Jovelyn, and I was very excited because I loved it. I loved it. So she did a fantastic job. In case you want to know, it was Janice from Traditional Stitches. So she went down and she did it. It was fantastic. So she doesn't recollect this very much at all. I recall it very clearly because it was the first one, and she brought back several pieces, and same thing, she won't recall this at all, I'm quite sure. Like, she brought back quite a few yards of hand-dyed fabric, and she'd said to me when, like, she'd bought them for me because I'd sent in this request. She was going to fill it to the best of her ability, and so when we went to market day at the store, she had kept them aside for me. And she'd said, like, you don't have to take all of it, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I will tell you, I was a very greedy Nashville shopper. I'd sent her on a mission, she brought them back, and I'm quite sure that all of the color, the fabric selections that she brought back for me from Hand Dyed Fabrics by Steph, I'm 100% sure that I took all of it. I was having a very stressful time at work. It had been really, it had been a lot going on. We'd been implementing a new accounting system, and it had been not the smoothest implementation. And so I was doing some retail therapy, and I bought all the fabric. And so I laugh, I bought all of it, and I knew the concepts that I sent her down. But yes, it's taken me 5 years for that fabric to pop up in stuff that I was working on. Part of it was like, you just need to get these pieces done. So thank you, Janice, for going down. Thank you for humoring your client that has unusual color preferences and fabric choices and all of those kinds of things. You did a fantastic job, and it's really great because I'm working on them now, and I bought them 5 years ago. But yes, so I do know, I've had a chat with Janice this week. I know for sure she's got at least one piece of Midnight Tryst in linen in stock. You know, like I say, she's overwhelmed with orders, and it's fantastic. So I certainly wasn't going to do anything weird where I said like, hey, can you go through all of the linen stash that you have in the store and see how many pieces you've got? But they do have hand-dyed fabrics by Stephanie in linens. They do have some in even weaves. They also stock Picture This Plus in even weaves. So I'm the guru at going and getting overdyes in even weaves. You know, so they stock that as well, because that's usually, you know, the section that I'm looking at. They also have a large linen selection. So if you're looking for that, traditional stitches, like I say, for sure I know that they have at least one piece. They might have a little bit more. They probably don't have a lot more. I know that they don't, they haven't had the Midnight Tryst in quite some time, because, you know, there's only so many people that are like me and want that. But they also can order it in for you. You just have to be very understanding that if you order it, they're going to have to order it from Stephanie. I don't know what Stephanie's back order is looking like. She's a one-man show, so it will take time. So same thing, put the order in, she'll have to make it, you know, Stephanie, I'm sure, is processing her orders in the order in which they're received. Then she's got to ship it. It's got to come across the border to get into Canada. Patience. This is our opportunity to practice the art of patience. Isn't that great? I can see some of you going, no, not so great. I just want my fabric or my thread or my beads or whatever it is that's the one thing that you're missing. And I get that. We're all doing our best that we can. So anyway, so that's the fabric talk. But while I was pulling my stuff together, I said I was going to do a quick little thing here on overdyed threads, because I had another example. I have to keep these in order. Don't let me forget, left hand is, so this is the, let me get the board back up here a little bit. I'm going to put the fabric so we get a little less reflection. Okay. So this is the Caron Water Lilies Polar Ice that I am going to be using for Choose Joy, for that my big toe. I'm a blue girl. That's my favorite color. So not surprisingly, so this is the one, so I literally had gone to the store to pick the blue, a blue fiber that went with that pot. And it has stayed in the pot since I bought it. So, because I don't want it to get mixed up in the stash, because I bought it very specifically. But I do happen to have another skein of Polar Ice, Caron Water Lilies, in my stash. So I thought I would haul that out as well. I've showed another example of some Gentle Arts ones. But again, welcome to the nature of overdyed fibers, whether it's threads or fabric or whatever. They are different. They come out differently. So I'm going to bring this up really close so you can see, like, even if I had gone to the store and had said, Polar Ice, great, that's the color that goes with the pot, that's the color that I should use for this design. Looked at my Xstitch app where I keep my inventory. That was a big project last year, putting it all in. If I had looked in my app and said, fantastic, you've got a skein of Polar Ice at home, in your stash, in Caron Water Lilies, you don't need to buy this skein, you've already got one at home, I would have come home and went, this is not going to work at all. This is completely different. And so just another example of saying, and it's not that they're doing anything wrong, and this is just the nature of overdyed flosses, overdyed fabrics. This is what happens. This is not, you know, don't get me wrong. A white fabric is going to be a white fabric is going to be a white fabric. You know, generally even a black Aida is going to be a black Aida. A black Lugana is going to be a black Lugana. They're going to come out the same. Overdyeds, not the case. They're very different. So again, I'm going to hold up the pot and you're going to get to see But again, I thought it was a really good example even for my own thing. Like if I had come home and hauled out the polar ice that I had in stash, it's not that it's horrible against the pot. But I think that's a better match. And these two, like if you showed them to somebody else, I think there's no way. Let's block out some of my pattern going on here. Like there's no way that somebody would look at those two skeins and inherently go, they're the same color. So just another example, and again, this one's going away in the summer, this is going into the pot. You know, and again, that's why I did it very specifically, and even when I came home from the store, it lived in the pot, because I didn't want it to get, because if it went into my stash and I went, okay, what was that color? I knew that I'd gotten something that went with it. I'm fairly certain that I never ever would have been able to find it again and go, oh yeah, that's the one that I was thinking of. It lived in the pot. I've made a decision. It's now going into the project bag so I can work on this. So thus endeth Flosstube number 5. This is a really long one. So if you stuck around for all of it, thanks for stopping by and visiting. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen. Please like and subscribe if you did. That way you'll get notifications for when I put up new videos, which my intention is to put up a video once a week. I film on Sundays. I hope everybody is staying safe. If you have any questions, comments, if you want me to talk about anything, feel free to put it in the question box below. More than happy to spend the time and answer questions, any questions that you've got. Reminder, there will be links below. Like I say, I'm going to directly link you to the Buckeye Stitcher videos, because I really think they're fantastic. For those of you that like, particularly Picture This Plus linens, I think she's done a brilliant job. I thought it was fantastic. I enjoyed watching it, and I don't even like stitching on linen, and I don't even like most of those colors, but I liked watching. I thought it was a really good example of what you can see and what those colors look like. So if I enjoyed it, I'm hoping that those of you that do like the overdyed linens and that color palette find it very, very helpful. So those will absolutely be linked below. I will put in the link to Traditional Stitches for the Midnight Tryst. Like I say, careful. I know for sure they've got one piece. I don't know if they've got more, and I'm certainly, like I say, I know Traditional Stitches is busy enough right now that the random, hey, just for information, could you go through your stash and see if you've got other pieces, is probably not their best use of time, so I'm not even going to ask them to do it. She's more than happy to order it in for you. You just have to make sure that you are willing to be patient while that gets processed. So again, thank you for stopping by. Hope you've enjoyed it. Have a great stitching weekend. I hope everybody's doing okay. Stay safe, be healthy, follow the instructions of your government people about what they're doing. I know everything's starting to reopen slowly. We still need to be really careful because, you know, I don't want a really big flare up. So let's just everybody do their best. But yes, it will be nice. Don't get me wrong. I'm in that camp. Please, I just need a haircut. Hopefully that's going to come in the next couple of weeks. So you'll get to see me when I've actually had my hair cut. So that'll be nice. Anyway, we're getting into summer and better weather, and we're all going to be let out, and we're going to be able to shop and stitch and go out and see friends and do things. That is just around the corner. But everybody stay safe and enjoy your stitching, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for coming.